Located just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, lies the quiet working-class neighborhood of Roslindale. But on October 27th, 1991, that sense of quiet came to an end. That morning, Thomas Shea Sr. backed his car out of his driveway on his way to work. He heard a scraping noise and stopped to investigate. He found a small black box on his driveway. Though he owned an auto body repair company, Shea knew nothing about the mechanics of cars. He assumed it was part of the undercarriage. His neighbors convinced him it looked more sinister than that. They urged him to call the police. Shea told police about the suspicious object. He was now afraid it might be a bomb. Bomb investigators Jerry Hurley and Frank Foley examined the small wooden box. Each had more than 20 years' experience in high-risk situations. But this time, something went wrong. Hurley and Foley were severely injured by the blast. According to ATF Special Agent Jeff Kerr, the police did what they could until help arrived.
Both of them still conscious, both of them heroic as could be, concerned for each other, asking how is Frank, and Frank asking how is Jerry, and the people in the neighborhood started responding, and ambulances were called, and that was the beginning of quite a long investigation.
Because police officers had been injured in the blast, agents from the ATF's Boston office were called in. The ATF's National Response Team worked with Boston police to find the culprit and the motive. Paramedics tried to stabilize the bomb technicians. Both were seriously injured. They were taken to the nearest hospital. Later that day, Jerry Hurley died of his injuries. Frank Foley was maimed for life. The bomber was now a killer. Investigators collected every speck of debris, hoping some of it might be unique enough to lead to the bomber. Most of the fragments were common electronic components. Toggle switches, soldered joints, electrical tape, batteries. They could be obtained anywhere, making them virtually useless as clues. Among the bits of shattered plastic, metal, and wood, the ATF tried to find a grain of truth. At this point, everyone was a potential suspect, especially Thomas Shea Sr. Though the ATF had to consider that Shea might have been the bomber, he wasn't a man without enemies. He'd made a minor career out of petty litigation and was currently involved in a heated lawsuit with the owner of the garage where he rented workspace. The owner was added to the list of suspects.
Get out of my face!
Later, another member of the Shea family appeared on the scene.
Okay, Tommy, why don't you have a seat for me?
Shea's estranged teenage son, Tommy, heard about the bombing on the news. He rushed to his father's house, but when his father's girlfriend wouldn't let him in, he went to the police station to find out what happened. He seemed genuinely concerned. After investigators filled him in, he answered some routine questions and left. The ATF would have to focus their attention on the physical evidence. All of the material collected at the scene was sent to the ATF lab. Investigators found what appeared to be the detonator. Small, white, crystalline particles coated the device. The material was determined to be unexploded dynamite. The technicians reasoned that the explosive had been taken out of its original casing and rewrapped to make it fit inside the bomb. The wrapping also provided the next clue: bits of colored paper clinging to tape. Forensic chemist Cynthia Wallace examined the paper.
They looked like they were from a magazine. They also had pictures of, looked like mussels and maybe some fruits and vegetables, and a little tiny piece of writing. Looking at that, it appeared to me that that might be the graphic artist's name who had designed the photograph and the layout of the article. So I had our librarian give me a list of all the Mussel magazine publishers that she could come up with, and I started calling them up.
Wallace managed to find the magazine that hired that graphic artist. With the publisher's help, she even found the issue and page number of the layout. She asked for a list of local subscribers.
Unfortunately, Mussel magazines like this are usually sold over the counter, and they have very few subscription sales.
Though the quirky wrapping didn't lead directly to the bomber, it helped to establish his signature, the specific way he constructed the device by rewrapping the dynamite. As the evidence collection continued, another clue emerged. Several distinctive screws. They were unique to a specific brand of remote control device. The component is used in remote control toys. Rigging it to an explosive device required some knowledge of electronics. This bomber, whoever he was, had been doing his homework, or had done this before. As investigators began to create a profile of their bomber, the next clue came from an unexpected source. On October 31st, 3 days after the bombing, Tommy Shea held a press conference. The bombing had garnered widespread media attention, and much of it focused on his family. He claimed that he was the target of the bomb. He said the bomber was a man he owed $50,000. Tommy's admission was news to police. Nothing in their investigation pointed to Tommy as the target. After the conference, they asked him to come to the station to tell them more. Agents checked into Tommy's story. They found no evidence that could link the man Tommy accused to the bombing. They also did a background check on Tommy Shea Jr. and discovered he was wanted in another town for receiving stolen property. Police arrested him on the spot and took an inventory of everything he had in his possession. It included a little address book. Eventually, Tommy was released on his own recognizance. By now, police had interviewed 200 people about the bombing and had made very little progress. Investigators turned their attention to the evidence collected from the bomb site. The thousands of tiny pieces recovered from the scene had given the ATF National Response Team enough to reconstruct the device. They passed its description to various police departments. Before long, Special Agent Kerr got his next lead.
One very astute detective remembers a 1986 incident where there was an explosive incident, and he provides that police report and that information to the agents that were down there. They bring it back. There's some similarities to this device, minor similarities, but similarities nevertheless.
In that incident, 5 years earlier, a truck had been damaged by a remote control bomb resembling the one that detonated at Shea's house. The main suspect in the case eventually cooperated with authorities and avoided a prison sentence. His name was Alfred Trinkler.
Somebody said, wouldn't it be weird if that name was in Tommy's book? And went back to the back of it, to the T's, and sure enough, there it was.
Yeah, come on in, fellas. What can I do for you today?
On November 6th, a week after the bombing, investigators paid a visit to Trinkler at his home, a short distance from Boston. He had his own small electronics and communications equipment company. He was very cooperative, even sketching for the police the bomb he built in 1986. He denied knowing Tommy Shea and agreed to take a polygraph. Later, he changed his mind about taking the test. Alfred Trinkler certainly seemed like the front-runner on the list of suspects. The problem was that the police had no physical evidence to tie him to the scene. To build their case, or to remove Trinkler from suspicion, the ATF tried a different tack. Investigators of the bombing in Boston knew that the device that killed Officer Hurley resembled the handiwork of Alfred Trinkler. But they didn't know if the fatal bomb was a common design or a unique one.
Good morning, gentlemen.
To find out, they sent the information gathered from the scene to intelligence research specialist Steve Scheid in Washington, D.C. Scheid would be able to plug the information he knew about the device into a national database of bombing incidents.
We were looking for remote control bombs. We were looking for bombs that had magnets attached to them, bombs that had electrical detonators. We were looking for particular types of switches and batteries.
The ATF database sifted through 14,000 bombings and came up with 7 hits. And of those 7, 5 were eliminated because of a clear motive or because they'd been solved. That left only 2. Trinkler's 1986 bomb and the bomb found in Thomas Shea's driveway. No matter what equation they used, the answer was always Alfred Trinkler. Agents believed that Trinkler and Tommy Shea Jr. worked together on the bomb, but investigators had little physical evidence to tie the 2 men together.
No thanks. All right, thank you.
Agents visited electronics stores. In one, a clerk identified Tommy from a photograph. He also found a receipt for merchandise purchased on October 18th, just 10 days before the explosion. It showed electronic components purchased by someone named Ashy, Shea, with the letters rearranged. The store was across the street from a building where Trinkler had been installing a microwave tower.
You all right on that beer, man?
Yeah.
Agents still hadn't clearly identified why Trinkler and Shea would want to kill Tommy's
So
father.
what you need for this?
Shea's friction with his father wasn't a convincing enough motive. Then, agents turned up a better one. Thomas Shea Sr.'s lawsuit against the garage owners. If Shea won his suit, he stood to gain $100,000.
Tommy Shea had made some inquiries to the attorney handling the case for his father, that what happens if my father dies? Where does the lawsuit carry on? And he was informed, yeah, the lawsuit carries on to his heirs, which would be his 4 children.
Days before the bombing, Tommy had also told a friend that he was going to get a large sum of money. A warrant was issued for Tommy Shea and Alfred Trinkler. Though the case against Shea was mostly circumstantial, investigators felt it would hold. Tommy Shea must have thought so too. Shea confessed to buying the bomb components and placing the device under his father's car. He said that Trinkler told him what to buy. Trinkler built the bomb. Alfred Trinkler denied any involvement, even though the evidence was stacked against him. Tommy Shea pled guilty to conspiracy to cause the death of a public servant and abetting the illegal use of explosives. He was sentenced to 12 years. Alfred Trinkler's resolve never weakened. He never talked, and he was sentenced to life in prison.